Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted Pivots, where we explore the transformative journeys of women that flourish. Today, I am thrilled to introduce our guest, and I love this woman, Skylar Romines. Skylar is a powerhouse in the commercial insurance industry and the brilliant founder of ATW Advisors. With a career spanning 17 years in commercial insurance brokerage, Skylar made a bold leap to establish her own firm, advocating for business owners with unparalleled expertise and integrity. She's also the inspiring and new author of the book titled So She Did, where she shares her insights and experiences to empower women everywhere and the men that support them. Skylar's dedication to mentorship, her strategic mind, and her passion for helping others navigate the complexities of risk management make her a true leader in her field. And to top it all off, she's a prominent voice on X, formerly known as Twitter, where she's engaging and enlightening her followers with her wisdom and her wit. Skylar, welcome to Unscripted Pivots.
Thank you. That was quite the introduction. Can I just bring you around with me everywhere from now on? That would be
Right?
awesome. Just come to every meeting with me and do that before we start talking about anything. That would be
and
great.
and it's so true, right? All of it's true, and then some. And we'll dive into all of the greatness that makes you, you, you. I usually start the episodes telling the listeners how I met who I'm interviewing or chatting with, and we met at a Crew Orange County event. We probably met before the first recollection of me meeting you was when we were kind of like going in and we were sitting there in that auditorium, and there was a panel discussion, and you just like kind of popped in and you sat to my left, and I was going through some crazy stuff at the moment. But in those 5 or 10 minutes in our whispering conversation, I got to know a little bit about you. And what I knew right then and there is I wanted to know more. You had mentioned you had a book going on, and that was always, it's on my to-do list, and some things that, you saw on the horizon. And I said, this is a woman on the move. And boy, are you on the move. 2024 has brought so many new adventures your way, really curated by your brilliance and your intentional strategy to make things happen. So just welcome, welcome. We
Thank
have
you.
so much to talk about, and I don't even know what order I want to talk about it, because she's really been doing a lot of new stuff. Let's talk about your new company. Okay,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
what inspired you after a successful 17-year career in commercial insurance brokerage to start ATW Advisors, and tell the listeners how you came to choose that name?
Sure. So the name was, something that I thought about for a little while. You go through a lot of different ideas, and then
Mm-hmm.
you get on the Secretary of State website, or you start Googling and realize like, I can't have this name, I can't have that name, that's already taken. So there were a few that I really wanted before that ended up not being options, but I ended up loving ATW and what ATW stands for, because a lot of people ask, they're like, do you have partners who are
Mm-hmm.
AT&W? What does this mean?
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and what ATW actually stands for is all the way. And that kind of represents a few different things for me, right? In terms of how we serve our clients, and kind of our slogan, if you will, is we're
Mm-hmm.
with you all the way, right? We want to represent your firm in the best possible light. We want to be with you from the ground up. We want to be really involved in your core business. And so that's kind of a critical thing. And then, on a personal note as well, and I don't share this with as many people, but since we're here,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it also represented, my leap, like you mentioned, from 17 years in corporate America, big brokerage, et cetera, into entrepreneurship. And for me, it was like, we're doing this all the way, right? We're burning the boats, burning the boats, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go back to. We quit the job, we're taking the
Mm-hmm.
leap, and we're doing it. And sink or swim, we're going all the way. So it represented a few different things for me, and I think it's really special. So I'm glad you asked that.
It's so funny because I wouldn't even say that there's just one or two of us. There seems to be this movement in that direction. Mostly, I mean, I'm more cognizant of what women are doing than what the guys are doing. Maybe they're doing this too, but where we're really coming into our own space and taking our skill sets and our relationships, and building our own, yeah, fortune. I mean, our own way, right? And so, and what I'm going to say about that is not at the expense of the companies or relationships that we had intact. It's more of an expansion than it is a replacement. And what I've noticed about your journey right out of the gate is all the advocates that you have at your side, including the people that you used to work with, which is a testament to their support in your journey, right? So it's not one of those like, showing somebody the finger while they're showing you the door. It was more like, I've got something else to offer and I want to work alongside. So you're leaving something where you felt inspired and trained and educated, and you're like flying the nest. And there's so much support for you in that space. And that really, really is great to see.
Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, that means a lot to me. And it's something that I was actually really nervous about and had to be really intentional about, right? Because this kind of niche that I've carved out with ATW is something that's different than what we've had in our industry before.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wanted to be able to represent my prior clients who were asking for this service, right? And just to get a little bit into the background of what ATW does, right? We're different than a brokerage. We're an owner's insurance rep firm. So a lot of people will call it insurance consultancy, but it's really a little bit different than that, where we're truly involved in the client's core business to a degree that I've never seen another firm do before. And I had clients on the brokerage side who were asking for referrals for this
Okay.
for a couple of years.
All right.
And I kept saying, it doesn't really exist, right? No one is doing that. And so finally it got to the point where I started thinking, God, if no one is doing this, someone needs to. And if someone needs to, why not me, right? And that's kind of how ATW was born. That mixed with the fact that I've always wanted to work for myself, but it was never the right time. And, you have these self-doubts and there's always something going on and you wait till this, you wait till that, and then it ends up never happening, right? And so it finally was just time to do the thing and make the leap. But one thing I was really nervous about is a lot of insurance consultants or third-party reps or even, owners reps within certain firms kind of have this adversarial relationship with brokers. And like you mentioned, I've been like blessed and extremely grateful for a ton of support from, my prior employers, the people within my industry. Over almost 2 decades, you built this network, and I know people from brokerages across the country, retail brokers and wholesale brokers and carriers. And this is why I was successful on the broker side to begin with, right? It's all those relationships. But I was a little bit fearful that, hey, if I go out and do this, and a couple of people have talked to me about it, in private. Are you saying that brokers aren't doing a good job advocating for the clients? Why do you need this extra person in between? And are you going to be a barrier between the clients and their brokers? And I've heard that word a lot. And kind of the messaging that I leaned into, and it's the truth, right? And so whenever you're leaning into the truth, it's easier to move forward with and kind of stand in. Is we're not here to be a barrier. We're here to be a bridge, right? There is something lacking in our industry where even the best brokers are kind of torn between their clients, their wholesale brokers, their TPAs and their carriers and different people that they need to be responsible for in different relationships. For us, for ATW, the only person that we're representing is the client, right? And we can kind of dig into their business and be involved to a degree that brokers aren't staffed to do. And frankly, a lot of them don't want to do. And what's funny is, like you mentioned, how much support I've had from my previous industry. My biggest referral partners so far are commercial real estate brokers and insurance brokers. And the insurance brokers come in and they say, hey, either we have this RFP and we want, an added thing to bring that no other brokers are going to bring to the table. And that can be you because you're a resource for the client that nobody else has. Or a couple of you even come to me and said, hey, we're happy to pay your fee if you'll help this client because they don't want to pay for it. They don't see the value yet, right? But we need help getting the right information from the client. And we want them to have the best representation in the market. And for them to be able to do that, they need to really understand how to present themselves in the insurance space, to a degree and to a different level than someone in-house can do. And that's kind of the complaint that we were hearing from a lot of people was the insurance procurement process is just so opaque. Even people who have been buying insurance for decades in a softer market really weren't paying attention to it because it was just a line item every year. And a lot of times you were paying less and less every year, right? And then all of a sudden you're paying 30, 50% more every year. And now you really have eyes on it and you really have the decision makers' eyes on it. Whereas you didn't have that a few years ago. And so I think people are realizing the value more and more of having someone in their corner and truly the difference it can make.
Oh, that's so insightful of you to recognize the gap that existed and to fill it. right? And so it's not duplicative in many ways to other things that are going on. I could see where there's some hesitancy, where somebody thinks you may be taking a little bit of a piece of their pie, but the way that you've just articulated it shows that it really is not even just like an add-on, it's a necessity. And I think that you're going to be leading the charge in this. There probably will be people that will follow over time because the demand is going to be that great, but you're at the forefront. You're like literally a pioneer, okay, in this space. And that,
Thank you.
for that, it's like, it reminds me of the title. Let's morph a little bit into your book. So, for those of you listening, this woman is just fascinating. And she just rolled out a book. I think it was within weeks of rolling out her company. I mean, 2024 for Skylar has been explosive, like literally so explosive. The book is fantastic. And getting back to our Crew Orange County relationship, a lot of the stories within there are testaments to the journey of the women that, were with Crew. And if I have your permission, I want to read something in the beginning because it really caught me. In the beginning of your book, in the introduction, one part she says, throughout my career, I have been fortunate to witness firsthand the resilience, determination, and brilliance of countless women. Yet, despite these remarkable qualities, many of these women faced significant obstacles that often seemed insurmountable. It was during these moments of struggle and triumph that I recognized the power of shared experiences and collective wisdom. This book is a testament to that realization. And when I read that, Skylar, it just like stopped me in my tracks because you literally articulated what I feel about why I started my own podcast and have it about women and the WTF people that we are. And so it was like you were speaking my words, which just tells me that there's so many of us that want to shine a light on that. And that's not at the exclusion of men, but at the celebration of women. And it's so important to mention that even though it's the stories about females in your book, it really behooves men to take a deep dive. And I know they already are because you already have these great reviews from men to even better understand where it is that we are, because this is the only way, like, for the future to actually be as strong as it can, right? We exist in the same space. And year by year, because, I'm a bit older than you, I see in right across not only the commercial real estate industry, but just by and large, that equalization to some degree where men are just it's kind of ordinary that the boys I have raised, they're now what, 33, 31, 29. They grew up with women side by side. It didn't look the way it looked like, when I was, going to law school and things like that. And so it really, you're educating everybody through your book. And as you describe in your book, it's also a call to action, which really makes it important for men to participate in reading it. So tell us a little bit about why did you write the book? And, what incited you to take the time you don't have because you're a very busy woman and you're a mom of twins and you've got this full-time career that is extremely demanding. And now you're, an entrepreneur. What made you think that you were going to do this? What inspired you to dedicate your time and resources?
Sure. You touched on so many different things there,
Yeah.
Danielle. So I'm going to try to address them all, but I'll go back to one thing first, that if I can, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
really kind of interesting, is we did meet through Crew,
Yeah.
and I was thinking before we started the podcast today, like what might come up. You're always kind of wondering what things you might touch on, and I thought about like my first impression of you versus probably what your first impression of me was. And this is something that's a little bit vulnerable for me to share. And I was
Okay.
kind of blow drying my hair and thinking, like, do I get into this? And then I thought, you know what? Like you mentioned, 2024 has been a critical year in my life. I actually
Mm-hmm.
just did a Twitter post about this morning. So it's funny that you mentioned it, but my life has changed more in the last year and a half than it did in the 35 years before that. And I can say that like
Mm.
without any question or hesitation. And that includes even the year that I had my twins, almost 11 years ago now,
It's
or
11.
anything else. Any major life event that I've gone through doesn't compare to everything that's changed for me in the last year. And the thing that really changed, that set all that emotion, was just a mindset shift, right? Of just realizing that you can literally do anything that you want to do you just have to freaking do it. And you have to do it scared, and you have to do it lonely sometimes, and you
Yeah.
have to do it not knowing,
Yeah.
knowing that there's a beginning and an end, but not being able to see the next stone in the path, or
Yeah.
even, breaking down the stones and laying them as you go. You have to be willing to kind of solve all these problems in real time and figure out what to do, but just building enough resilience and changing your mindset within yourself to believe that, I used to think like, I don't know if everything's going to be okay, so I'm just going to wait until, it's the better time, or people aren't looking at me under such a microscope, or this or that is different. And now it's like, you get to a place within yourself where like you have this, it sounds corny, but like this fire and like this energy burning inside, where you realize like it doesn't matter what I run into, I'm gonna run into
Yeah.
a lot of struggles on my path. I know I am. There's no question about that. What matters is I know that no matter what happens, and I don't know what the hell it's going to be, it could be a million different things, I can get through it. And not only am I going to get through it, I'm going to be better on the other side. And not
Mm-hmm.
only can I do that, because there's nothing special about me, and this was the whole point of the Twitter post I made this morning, there is absolutely nothing special about me that doesn't exist within other people. And if I can make the decision to do these things, I promise you, you can too. And so if anyone takes away anything from seeing me launch this firm, reading the book, seeing me write the book, or anything else, I hope that that's the message that someone takes away, is just, I wasn't born with anything different. I didn't have a different network. I didn't come from a great background. Everything that I've done is solely because I just freaking decided to do it. And the biggest difference between people who do and people who want to do is just taking that action.
Yeah.
And there is no right time. There's never going to be a right time. People are always going to judge you. So you have to get used to the
No,
idea that
that's
you
so
can't make
true.
everybody happy, and you just got to do it. That's,
I think, and I've undergone a lot of changes in 2024 as well, as you know, and I think that one of the things that I got comfortable with is making failure my friend instead of my
Mhm.
foe.
I love that. I love that.
That's really what it boils down to. And when you are as experienced as, you as me and what we've been doing for a long time, and we've got a very established stellar relationship, it is not an easy leap to get down to, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. And to know you're going to falter and you're going to get some egg on your face. And, sometimes that's publicly and sometimes it's not. It's within the confines of your own experience and home, but you're like, I don't know what the hell,
Yeah.
whatever piece it is. For me, it's very much tech pieces. Every day I'm trying to figure out how to navigate something. But it's so cool. You mentioned Twitter. Is that what you wrote on? So do we still call it Twitter, or is it called X? I don't even know. I mean, and
It,
guys, let me tell you, she's prominent on this site, and from what she has shared with me just in our casual conversations, it wasn't one of those things that she necessarily pursued, but she became a little bit of a star in this space. And so now I've added that to my whole list of social media, situations. So I want you to talk a little bit about X and what you're doing on there, because it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know as far as I'd go as far as to say a star, but I appreciate that. It's really weird. I started working on LinkedIn maybe a year and a half ago, and just kind of posting regularly. And I had never
Mhm.
really utilized social media before. And someone had told me, like, just post every day, post about insurance, post about risk management,
Mhm.
post a little bit about yourself. You know, what was the term that they used? 70% value, 30% viral. So basically what that means is like, give your knowledge, right? The last
Mhm.
17 years of your career that you've shared, 70% focus on that, 30% just focus on you. Let people get to know you for you, because that's what people really like on social media, right? You don't want to be, when you're building your personal brand, you don't want to be just this business brand. That's an important piece of it. You also
Sure.
have to let people see, little bits and pieces of who you really are, and that's how they feel connected with you, and you build real relationships, right? And that's critical. So I really started on LinkedIn, and then people kept saying, because my business is largely focused on commercial real estate as well. And people started saying, you have to get on Twitter, because there's this corner of Twitter called retweet, and you have to connect with people there. And there's so many opportunities. And, in my mind, I had always heard really negative things about Twitter. I'm hearing, people are like arguing about politics and kind of cutting each other down. And it's this negative place. And for a long time, I was like, I don't want to invite that into my life. I've spent all this intentional time and energy cutting all the negativity out of my
Yeah.
life. Why would I sign up for a platform that's known for
Mhm.
kind of this negative aspect? And then, finally, it was a commercial real estate broker actually based out of Chicago who has a really big following on LinkedIn, who was like, you really need to get on Twitter. Like, it's going to be
Oh, so
beneficial
you
for
were
you.
encouraged. Okay. Yeah.
I was encouraged by several people, but for some reason, when he spoke to me, it spoke differently. Isn't that funny about life? Like, sometimes we can
Mhm.
get the same message from different people, but you hear it from one person
The
better than
teacher
another.
appears when the student is ready. It
That's
just
right.
starts, yeah. Mhm.
That's right.
Okay.
And so I said, fine, I'll try it. I'll try it for a month. I'll try it for 3 months. I'm not going to put a lot of time and energy into it. I'll repost. I started by reposting my LinkedIn posts on Twitter. I was like, I'll
Yeah.
do that for a while and see how it goes. And I kind of just, like you alluded to, I didn't expect anything of it. I don't know how to grow a platform. I'm not a professional in the space in any way. I just kind of got on and was being authentic and felt a little bit more comfortable on that platform than on LinkedIn to let more bits and pieces of myself come out versus just the business side. And for whatever reason, I kind of got adopted into this retweet real estate Twitter community pretty quickly. I don't have a huge following. I mean, I have like 8,500 followers or something.
No, but
It's not
that's a lot
it's not
in a short
huge,
time. But
but
you also alluded. I was asking you about it because I'm not on that app whatsoever. To tell you the
mhm,
truth, I had the same feelings that you did, and from until recently, I was just on LinkedIn. I mean, that's where we did business, and that's where we got
yeah.
educated, networks. But you did something in New York recently, like, don't you? I mean, you're more involved than just like you posting by yourself, right? I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
actually have an established somewhat relationship. And are we calling it X or are we calling it Twitter? Like, what is it? Is it called? Is it officially really X? Like in your
It's
community, if you're an X, are you an Xer? Do you X or do you tweet?
it's
Like, what is the what's the verbiage that we
yeah.
use for that?
It's funny because I was never on it when it was officially Twitter, and yet in my
Okay,
mind it's still Twitter, but it is technically X. And I think
okay,
actually in posts you're supposed to put X because if you put Twitter now, it can like downgrade you in the
okay.
algorithm
Oh,
because
there
they're
you go.
trying to get
You
rid
don't
of
want to
that
mess with an
verbiage. You don't want
algorithm.
to mess with the algorithm. You want the algorithm
No.
to be your friend. So yeah, but I mean, I did. I got invited to, there was a real estate Twitter gala in New York in
Hmm.
April. I got invited to
Yeah,
that. I
it's a
don't know
big
why,
deal.
but it was a
No.
huge deal. It was a great opportunity. I met so many amazing people. And
Wait,
I
can I
will
stop
say,
you? I'm stopping you. I'm stopping
yeah,
you right here because you said, "Oh, I got invited to a real estate Twitter." Okay, we're gonna call it X
yeah,
gala in New York,
Rex Gala.
and I don't know why. And I want to say BS to that. BS to that statement. And we do that so quickly because you may not yet have fully understood the value that you're bringing, but that's a testament to the reality. You bring value. That's why you were invited, Skylar, because they see you as somebody who has something to say and you make the platform better. You may not be the biggest person on X yet. You're eligible too, YET. But I'm going to say, we women tend to downgrade the great things that are happening around us. And when we have evidence, outside validation and evidence, we're like, oh, yeah, no, no. No, shame on that. Okay. I do it too. You
Yeah,
just did it. And I want to call BS on it. Okay. You were
thank you.
invited because you belonged there. You
Yeah.
belonged there. And if I see anything about you from because look, I'm not in commercial insurance. I never, well, I did title insurance for years, but we really didn't overlap in our contacts and not even, well, maybe in our networking a little bit, that's fair. But what I do witness, and I don't know these people, the amount of support that you are receiving for all that you're doing, I mean, it is coming in tidal waves, not ripples. You're not having a ripple effect. You're having a tidal wave. And more than that, I know you're acknowledging it. She's nodding. And you guys that watch YouTube, you'll see this on video. It's incredible to me that you want to share those moments as messages to others saying, you too, this isn't just about me. The encouragement that you're giving during this transitional time, transformative time, right? You're taking that little spotlight, that big spotlight. I'm sorry, I'm going to correct myself, and you're shining it on a community. You're saying publicly, this is not just about Skylar, and that is why I so adore and respect you
Thank
deeply,
you. I'm going to
deeply.
say something that sounds a little cheesy here, but it's
Yeah.
the God's honest truth. And it sounds crazy again because we're going back to like it's Twitter and people write
Mm-hmm.
that off so easily. The first 3 clients who signed with me with ATW were either directly from Twitter or referrals from Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
My pipeline before I left my brokerage career was 7 figures directly off of
Mm-hmm.
Twitter.
Yeah.
And the community there and some of the friendships that I've built there in the last, and I've only been on, 6 or 7 months. I mean, I
It's
haven't had a long
amazing.
tenure there,
Yeah.
but even in just launching the firm, I reached out to a lot of friends who have had entrepreneurial journeys and are, a step
Mhm.
or two ahead of me. Several of those people who gave me some of the best advice when I was getting ready to make the leap were friends from Twitter. And
Yeah.
so, again, it sounds crazy, but kind of this network I've built, and it's almost, I was always a nerdy kid. I didn't have the best family life growing up. Like, I've always kind of been fiercely independent and done everything
Mhm.
on my own. And I will say, the Twitter and retweet community, and this is where it gets a little cheesy, bear with me, but it's the truth. It's one of the first times in my life, and crew actually I would put into this category as well,
Mhm.
where I actually feel like I have a community that has like engulfed and supported me, and I have so much support. And I, for the first 35 years of my life, never really felt that way or had that. And it's like the most incredible experience, and you just don't know where your people are going to come from. But if you
Mhm.
get really intentional about being the type of person that you want to be and building the type of life you want to build and creating that space for new people to enter into your life, it's amazing how God or the universe or whatever you want to attribute it to will fill that space with the people that you need. And I truly feel like that's happened for me in the last year in a way that I never could have
So, I mean,
imagined.
you're just shining. You're just absolutely
Thank you.
you're glowing with gratitude, not just success, you're glowing with gratitude. That's evident to me.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
wanna talk about anything about, when you were younger or anything like that? I mean, it was not easy. Like you said, it just wasn't we don't need to dive too much. I mean,
Sure.
I know her personally, but what I love is that the connections that happen when, like you said on X today, I'm nobody special. Like, I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I wasn't, given a position that was elevated. I am like your regular person that knows how to work hard. And I decided to get outside my comfort zone. I mean,
Yeah.
that's essentially what you did. There's a lot of talented people that won't do that, and we
Oh, I
understand
joke
why. I mean, because it can, there's such a thing called fear. But what do you joke about? What were you gonna say?
I joke that I just don't have a comfort zone anymore
Yeah.
because I've just I've beaten the whole thing down to a point where
Yeah.
it's just gone. Like, all those walls are knocked down. I don't know like what a comfort zone even is,
Mhm.
right? You just have to, again, it goes back to being so comfortable with yourself. One example I always give is like, don't give me the person who like, is at XYZ point in their life, or, has achieved XYZ success, because I don't know where they started. I don't know what they did to get there. Give me the person who is so confident in themselves and such a strong and resilient individual that you could drop them off naked in the forest without a phone, without any money, without
Mhm.
anything, and they are going to claw their way back and figure out how to be successful again. That's the person I want in my corner.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
you know,
And
and
that's who you are. And you know what? I'll add to that. You just reek of authenticity.
thank you.
This is why
Yeah.
you have so many allies and like your army, your Skylar army continues to grow. No, because you are as authentic as it gets. And I
Thank
like the
you.
raw and the realness. But I want to jump back to the book because I don't want to. First of all, everybody go buy that book. It will be in it's on Amazon. It might be probably through your website too. It'll be in the show notes. But I want you to talk a little bit about the women that you chose to interview for your book? Like, how did they come into your path? Were you trying to? I know there's somewhat of a diverse background. You have a lot of people in the commercial real estate sector, but and male dominated, right? You got the geologist and the land surveyor. I mean, she's got all sorts of things, and somebody who works in a gym. But all these women's stories relative to each chapter topic. How did you come to choose who it was that you were going to have participate?
Yeah, so I was coming up on my 36th birthday, and I
Mm-hmm.
had been playing around with this book for a little while. And I had a moment where I thought, okay, I had done the first version of the book. We've talked about this a little bit. I'd written the first version of the book with all of my own thoughts and all of the statistics and no stories. And, first time author, learning things the hard way,
Yeah.
kind of just throwing yourself into the deep end of the pool and figuring stuff out as you go. Big mistake there. If you're going to interview people for a book and include their stories in the book, interview them first and
Mm-hmm.
then backfill the rest of the information around it. But I didn't do that. I did it the other way. So I started thinking about who am I going to include in here, and I had a few people who I talked to personally who I knew I wanted to include.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Because I got to a point with the book where I'd put just enough time into it that I was sick of putting time into it if I wasn't really going to do something with it. So I was like, I either need to really decide that I'm going to finish writing this book and I'm going to publish it and it's going to be a
Yeah.
real thing, or I need to walk away from it and rededicate this time and energy that I've been putting to this project to something else, because it can't just be this dead end and I'm keeping, continuing to put my own time and energy into it. And so I kind of, broke down, had a conversation with God. And I know that's, may not resonate with everyone, but for me, it's a very important part of my life. And I was like, hey, I need about 30 women who have great stories, who are either founders, CEOs, like you said, project managers, surveyors, people who are out in the field, people who are in these male dominated industries who have a story to tell. And I told God, and I talked to God this way, maybe everybody doesn't, but I said, I need 30 women in the next 2 weeks or I'm not doing this. Yeah. So I said, I need a sign. I need a big sign that this is either what I'm supposed to do or this is not what I'm supposed to do. And I'll take either answer, but I need to know, like, we need some clarity here. But pray as though everything depended on God, work as though everything depended on you. So I did that little prayer, and then I got on the Crew Network website. Hey, I'm writing this book. If anybody wants to interview and you have a story to share about X, Y, or Z, and it fits into one of these categories, reach out to me. I'd love to include you. Reached out to my NAWIC, which is North American Women in Construction. Same thing. Reached out to them and said, hey, if anybody has a story to share, if you fit into one of these categories and you want to be in this book, let me know. And within the next 2 days, I had 36 women that were lined up. Within the next week or so, I think I was closing in on 100 women that were lined up. I was like, okay, ask and you shall receive, right? I asked for a sign. You gave me more than the sign that I asked for. And it was like, at that point, I had so much clarity, even though I was kind of exhausted with the whole process and didn't really want to move forward. I was kind of almost hoping, hey, no women come and want to share their stories with me so I can walk away from this feeling good. But I got the opposite sign and decided to move forward with it. And it really told me that maybe you are doing something important and this is kind of part of your calling and you need to see it through. So that's what we did.
All right. So did they write in their experiences, or was this like a phone call? How did you collect the information?
We did video interviews. I had a couple who I met with in person, but I interviewed women from all across the country, even one woman in the UK. So wasn't able to meet with everyone in person. So most of them were just Zoom video interviews.
So you got to see the body language attached to the story.
Yeah.
And that must have been powerful, because one of my episodes, a couple episodes ago, I asked a very simple question to a few women at a couple different events. It was really random, the one I was doing it. Nobody knew. Anyway, I said, if you could go visit your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her? And when I had the opportunity to see the facial expressions really, really change, it was something else. So I could only imagine speaking to somebody like, for more than 1 minute and, sharing the intimacy of that space and even the celebration, the highs and lows that come with them going down, memory lane, as it were. That really is something else. How did you come to choose So She Did? Like, where did the title come from?
Take a cough break for a minute.
Yeah.
Been holding
Take a water break. You can take a water break. You can take any kind of break you want.
Okay, we're good. I just had to get the cough out. I'm like, oh, my nose is dripping. I still have a little, the cold's still lingering. But
no, she. And by the way, guys, she's coming off of a horrific. I don't think it was COVID. I think it was worse than COVID. Poor Skylar. While this is all going on, God said, "You shall rest," and He literally made her bedridden. Okay, and
no joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the title "So She Did" came from the phrase "She believed she could, so she did," which I think a lot of people are familiar with, and I loved that. And it's also, a big women in construction phrase. And I'm in the insurance industry, but I work very closely with developers and folks in commercial real estate and have for the last 2 decades. So that phrase has kind of been repeated over and over again in my life. And I think it's so important to all of us, like you alluded to earlier, not just for women, for men too, but women have, humans all have this human experience, and we're all kind of learning some of the same lessons in different ways. But I think women especially, and I'm sure men especially in their own camp too, I've just never been a man, so I can't speak to that, right?
You speak about what you know. Yeah.
Right. But for us, our experience is a little bit different. And I think a lot of times, a struggle that a lot of women have is just this kind of insecurity and overcoming this, am I good enough? Or, if I'm too confident, I get treated this way. And if I'm not confident enough, I get treated this way. And how do you toe that line? And I think it's really critical for everyone to come to that point where it's like, she believed she could, so she did. And that's, kind of what I talked about earlier, was you just take action. You don't know how it's all going to turn out. You don't know what you're going to run into. You just believe you can, and you do. And that's it. And so that's really where the title came from. And then back to what you mentioned about like your 18-year-old self, what would you tell them? And a story I was going to start earlier, but we got a little sidetracked. We got on the ADHD train a little bit, but even with us in Crew, and this is, a little bit of a vulnerable thing, but it just shows how much can change in a year. And I think it's really important to share, even though it's one of those things that's a little bit uncomfortable to share, right? But I remember when I first joined Crew, which was just a little over a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a pretty outgoing person. I mean, you know me, right? I can talk to a brick
Oh,
wall,
yeah, sure.
but you walk into a room full of women who all kind of know each other and you don't know anyone. And, I had seen you and Nicole and some of the others who were
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I'm not going to say mean girls because you were very nice people, but the cool girls in the group, right? Who clearly were connected and people were looking up to you. And actually, the first time we met, you were doing a panel about podcasting.
Oh,
And
sure.
you
That was
probably don't
last
remember that,
July.
but I remember that, right? So
Oh, I remember that.
that's about exactly a year ago.
But that's really when I met
Um,
Nicole. I didn't really know
okay.
Nicole, just so you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's when I met
yeah.
her. Yeah.
But
We're
for
talking
me,
about Nicole Miller, guys, and she's
and she's
amazing.
amazing too. Yeah.
Oh,
Jinx.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta look her up. Yeah, okay.
Um, but I was so insecure initially in that setting as well. And I was thinking, like, gosh, I really want to get more involved with this organization, but maybe I don't fit. Maybe I'm not good enough. And I'm always coming into these industry groups with the backdrop of I'm the freaking insurance person, in the
Oh,
real
hello,
estate group.
sister. I mean,
And
you're at
so
least the cool insurance. I was title
yes, title
insurance. You were that. Oh,
insurance.
please.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
okay. Yeah.
But, I was reflecting on that as I was getting ready, doing my hair this morning. And I was like, gosh,
Mm-hmm.
in a year I went from showing up being the awkward one in this group. And I remember at one point even talking to one of my good friends, Shannon, and I was like, I don't know if this networking group's a good fit for me. Like, I'm really trying. I'm trying to reach out to people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not feeling connected. I was like, I think I'm going to go to like 3 or 4 more meetings. And if something doesn't click, I'm gonna leave this one behind. And looking back over a year, what's changed? Like now I'm co-chairing the membership committee. I'll be on the
Yeah,
board next year. I'm actually good friends with you and Nicole. Like you guys have changed my life in some ways, and we bounce ideas off of each other, and we're all kind of growing on
that
similar
is
paths.
so
And
cool.
I've met so many more women through the organization who I consider actual friends now. And it's like, it's just a testament to like, no matter how much imposter syndrome or self-doubt you're having, like just keep doing it. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. Like lean on the people you need to lean on when you need to. But
Mm-hmm.
if you just keep going, like these doors open for you in ways that you would have never imagined. And you meet more people than you would have ever imagined. And you kind of cultivate, again, the circle that you need in your life versus just the cage that you were born with. And I think
Right.
being intentional about those things is critical. Scary. It's terrifying, right? Like,
Yeah.
but
It's
you have to
scary,
do
but
it.
do it anyway. One of the things that, I don't know, I heard on some show and I love this. It's like, it's not even just about facing your fears. We're meant to ride our fears. It's like
Okay.
you just ride that, and it's
Yeah.
fine on the other side. But we need women like you that show us that it is possible. And there's so many women out there, getting outside their comfort zone or just destroying the fact that there could even be one. It's one thing to be aware of that negative self-talk that can come in, right? It's a whole other thing to reside there. So it's like when those feelings come, just recognize them for what they are. It's just a bunch of noise and you keep going. You will always find your supporters and you will always move forward as long as you keep trying. I mean, that's just really it. And we're not meant for everybody. And I think the most important thing too that I have experienced is my self-worth is not contingent upon what you think of me. It's just not. I have
Snaps
to,
for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to get up and look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, Danielle, the only thing that you're competing against is your version of you yesterday. Let's just, do a little bit better today. And it's not that I'm dissatisfied with yesterday's version. I just know that she's got even bigger places to go. That's all. I don't compare myself to other people. That's a colossal waste of time. I am inspired by other people, but I don't compare myself to them because there will always be people that are further along on the journey, no matter what it is you're trying to tackle, right? So be inspired by it. Don't be envious of it. Don't be distracted by it, and don't let it hold you down. We are all walking evidence that it is possible. And you, my dear, are just, you're crushing it. And I
Thank
am
you.
so excited to see how this year continues to, like reveal itself because you came out of the gate in an explosive way and there has been no slowing down in the attention and the acknowledgement and just the feedback on your book and all the things that you're doing. It's really, it's a celebration of possibilities. You wanted to do it and so she did. Yeah, so she did. I thank you so much for coming on, Skylar. You're such a rock star. I can't wait to see you again in person. We're going to get another walk on Balboa or something like that.
Those
But
walking meetings.
is in the show notes, there will be all the information, but tell the audience how they can find you as well. So, yeah.
Sure. So you can find me, on all the major social media platforms now. LinkedIn, just under
Yeah.
my name, Skylar Romines. Twitter at Skylar Romines. If you're going to look at my Twitter, just be prepared. It's a little more authentic, a little more deranged, I always say. Instagram, I don't really use it, but I'm there too. Or if you want to look up the book, it's on Amazon under So She Did.
Yes, I'll have a link in the show notes for that. Is there anything else that you want to share before we no.
No, just thank you. I'm so grateful we met, Danielle. Like, I love your abundance mindset, everything you just said. It's so true. Like, some people are
Mhm.
stuck in this mindset of like, it's a zero-sum game, and if someone else wins, then I have to lose, and
Yeah, right? And
and that's
yeah.
so not true. I mean,
Mm.
there's just this giant pie and everybody can have a piece of it. And the more, I think some people get stuck in this mindset of like, I need to compete with XYZ versus I can collaborate with XYZ and we can all rise up and we can all win. What do they say? A rising tide raises all ships, right? And the more
Yes.
we can all shift that mindset and adopt that abundance mindset and start to just collaborate and help each other and everyone grows and kind of builds the life that they want, I think the world just becomes a more beautiful place and people are just happier and more fulfilled in general. And so I'm so thankful for people like you who have that mindset and are doing the things that they want to do and still hold enough space in their lives to be excited for other people as
Mhm.
well. I think that's
Oh,
such a
yeah.
huge indicator for me of the type of person I want to be around is like, are they able to celebrate other people's wins? Because that's such a beautiful thing to do, not only your own wins, but other people's as well. So just thank you. Thank you for having me on here. Thank you for being who you are. And, I'm excited to
This
see
is
your next
absolutely
chapter
my
too.
pleasure. I know we're going to just take 2024 by storm, and 2025 and all the years that
2025
follow.
too.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
there we just slipped. Let's see
we're
what
not we're
that
not
brings.
stopping at the end of this year. Yeah.
No, we have no intention of slowing down.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.